Welcome back to the Booktroverts podcast. I'm Michaela.
I'm Meg.
Today's episode, we are doing a deep dive of The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is book one in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. We're like 3 years late to this book specifically. This went like really viral on BookTok literally 3 years ago. But better late than never is what they say.
Yeah.
Of course, like all of our deep dives, we are going to be talking about everything that happens in this book. So if you've not read it yet, you will be spoiled. So if you don't want that, pause, come back to it. Then just a big disclaimer at the beginning, we did not listen to the audiobook. We read this on Kindle, so we're probably going to pronounce 95% of the things wrong, and
For sure.
just don't say anything, okay? We're doing our best. That's where we're at.
We're doing our best.
I'm not an audiobook girl.
No.
I'm sorry. I'm reading it on the Kindle. I'm making up what these fantasy words sound like to me, and we're just going to have to live with it.
And you're just going to say, okay, I think this is what they're saying and hope for the best.
And I'm sorry, these are made up places. You know, I didn't learn this ever in my life, so
Yeah.
this is where we're at. And so like our normal format, we're going to start with our ratings, and then Meg is going to walk us through little overviews. This book was broken up into parts, so we're going to just follow the way it was organized. Meg, what did you rate it?
All right, I went specific, but I did a 4.25. I really liked it. I thought it was really cool. It was a fast read. Araya and Rain are definitely really good for the main character's perspective. I just really liked it. I will say I wish it was dual POV at times. It would have been nice to get Rain's perspective, but I get we're just starting off in Araya's area. There was a crap ton of foreshadowing for what we learn at the end with Vincent being Araya's father and just all of that. And even the hints kind of down the line. I didn't pick up on anything, but so much you can see after reading it of, oh, wow, that was really obvious. So I liked it. It wasn't outlandish where the things were completely just pulled out of nowhere. It was very well done. So that's why I gave it that rating.
Nice. Makes sense.
What about you?
I gave it a 4. I really liked it. I thought the pacing was really well done. I am a sucker for any type of fantasy books that have trials in it. I just really enjoy reading that, and like more high stakes content, which I enjoy. To me, the world building I felt was a little lackluster. There was times when I was just either a little confused of what they were referencing, or I felt like we didn't get enough information where I felt like we kind of needed it at some point. So that was kind of a little bit lacking for me. The bigger reveals I kind of guessed based off of context clues that I was picking up on throughout the book. So it was like a little bit predictable, but honestly I was fine with that. The biggest thing for me though that kind of took away points was I knew that they had a second book, because this is going to be a 6-book series, but it's broken up into what I believe is going to be 3 separate duologies. So I knew that they were only having 2 books, these main characters, and I was like getting close to the end and I still had no clue what we were even going to be talking about in the second book. It set it up for a sequel once you got to the end, and I have started reading the second book, so like it kind of just like picked right up. But towards the end I kind of was like, I don't really know what we're going to be trying to solve in book 2. Like, do we need a book 2? So things like that I just felt like weren't fully fleshed out. But other than that, I like the characters, I like the fast pace, I like that they're vampires, so 4-star for me.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point about what it was going to be for book 2, I also was figuring that it was going to be 3 duologies just for the fact that each of the houses and everything. But yeah, I was trying to figure out what context that we get in book 1 was going to be part of the issue that they had to figure out in book 2. It wasn't obvious of where we were going.
Even the ending, I'm like, oh, okay, I could kind of see what we would be like. There was a little bit laid out, but not enough. We have mentioned that we both have started book 2, but we will not be mentioning anything from book 2 in this episode, so you don't need to worry about that. But yeah, I think we can dive into part 1 if you want to hit us with the overview.
Yeah. All right. And I apologize. I'm going to say everything probably wrong. But the first part is obviously part 1, which was Dusk. But I also kind of added prologue in here just because there's a little bit that you got there. But we learn about the 3 vampire houses in the Obitrades, which is Nyaxia's world. It is Shadow, Night, and Blood. Araya, our female main character, is a human in the world full of vampires, specifically in the House of Night. She is saved as a child by Vincent, who is the king of the Hiaj Nightborn. With that, Araya is joining the Kajari, which is a once-in-a-century tribute to Nyaxia. They have this huge tournament of sorts and kind of go through a bunch of trials. She does hope to win and become Vincent's Coriate, where they would be heartbound and she wouldn't have to face the risk of turning. So she would, with this, basically turn into a vampire at that point. It also binds her soul to Vincent so that his power becomes hers and hers becomes his. So with that overview, we get a lot of intro to people and kind of understanding the characters that we'll hear about throughout the book. So what stood out to you the most in this first section?
This is going to be the most random thing, but it drove me nuts that we didn't know her name for the first like 4 chapters.
Wait.
In my notes I kept writing like she, and I didn't know what her name was.
I thought that was just me. I thought I missed something.
It was driving me nuts. I was like, could someone just use her name, please? When you don't know the character's name.
Yeah.
It's fine. I understand for like the first couple, first chapter, first 2, I was like, we were kind of in it.
Yeah.
What is her name? I know everyone else but her. Right off the bat, though, this is where I felt like I was a little bit confused on the world building, but that's to be expected with the first book in a fantasy series. They just throw you right in. But right from the jump, I was confused around why Vincent, king of this vampire area, took in this random human girl and raised her as his own. That was throwing me off. What is the reasoning behind that? Already I just had some questions around him, continued literally till the end. I still have them in book 2 of what he was doing over there. And then this is also our first encounter with her friend Alana, and she's another one where they're talking and I'm picking up that you guys are friends. How close are you? Are you besties? Is she just kind of your accomplice in the castle, letting you sneak out and do stuff? How old is she? I had no clue. I was picturing like a 50-year-old woman chain smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day. I just felt like we were getting glimpses, but nothing was fully fleshed out, and it was kind of driving me nuts.
I am with you 100%. It's so funny you say that about Alana because I pictured her as well, of being older, chain smoker. I don't know if it's just me, but I pictured her apartment being part of the castle, where she was on the opposite side of Araya's place. Or was I way off? Was she?
I thought she lived in the castle, like the servant quarters or something, because we find out she's basically like a blood bag for the vampires.
Yeah.
So she's a human, and she essentially just offers her blood up to the vampires to snack on whenever they're feeling a little hangry, a little peckish. So I thought she lived there in a servant quarter, maybe in a wing on the opposite side or something.
Okay. Thank you, because I thought so too. And then literally when events happen towards the beginning of part 2, I'm just sitting there. I go, where the hell did they grab these people from? Because I thought that they were in a certain quarters that was all the blood vendors and that's it. Maybe they stay in one area so they're easily grabbable in the sense of, hey, I don't know, you've kind of sold off your life to us pretty much for us to use. That's kind of what I was picturing, and I was really confused why Araya couldn't go through the rest of the castle. I mean, granted, she didn't want to get found by her dad, but I don't know. She's scaling walls and everything. I go, I don't know where this is.
Yeah. And then the whole her wanting to be heart bonded to him, that I kept having questions in my mind. I'm like, why wouldn't you just want to turn into a vampire? Why doesn't he want to turn you? Why does he want to keep you a human? I had questions around that.
Yeah. And
I still kind of have questions, even by the end of the book. I'm still like, why was that the path you got? So I feel like we didn't really know the survival rates yet about the turning of vampires. So probably just didn't want to risk her life. But I don't know. To me, it felt like, what is he getting out of it at this point with the knowledge we have? Because you're going to get all of his powers and he's getting your powers, but you don't really have much.
That's exactly what I kept questioning at the beginning, is I don't understand what he's gaining besides the fact he wants her to be officially his family, basically, is where she wouldn't be in danger of her life every day. I mean, granted, in this world, regardless of if you're a vampire or not, you're in danger. And also being king, you're more at risk because basically the way to get the crown is pretty much through a bloodbath. Every single time we hear about it it's not as if I stepped down or, whatever. It's, oh no, the last king got killed by the current king or someone else, and then the heir mark appears on some random person and they take the throne. So I was just trying to figure it out too. I mean, we learn a little bit more as we go through, but yeah, the whole beginning, I don't understand what the significance of this is right now. I'm hoping we figure it out.
Also, the other part that I was like, okay, what's happening here? There, obviously, we're learning about the Kajari and it happens once a century, blah, blah, blah. But then we find out when she gets to it, like, she's the only human competing. And
Yeah.
at the end, they win some type of wish, whatever they want, from the goddess Nyaxia. And so I'm like, why don't other humans enter this?
Right.
Or are humans not technically allowed, but she's getting a pass because she's the daughter of the king. At this point, she does not know. I'm just going up with that information that she has at this point. She thinks she's fully human. Is that why she's allowed to go in? Or is it because we later do find out she is half vampire, so she gets a pass on that technicality? I'm wondering why the humans aren't involved in this, because I feel like they would have a lot of wishes that would want to be granted. Like, vampires cannot come near me.
Right. Yeah. Keep me safe from everyone. I'm kind of my own bubble. I can't be touched or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I understand that this Kajari is specific where they get a wish and Nyaxia grants it. But also, I'm just going super theory here. Can she just decline it? I mean, she could just say, I don't grant your wish. I can grant something else instead. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if it's always granted because it sounds as if every single one has been granted so far.
I got the impression that every single one had been granted, but I also got the impression that, yeah, it is really up to her discretion of what she wants to do.
Right.
Just like
So,
everything else is kind of like up to her how she's feeling that day.
yeah. So, I mean, there might be one year where she goes, you know what? Yeah, let's all the humans join in and see what kind of bloodbath we get before this
Yeah, it
event.
sounds like she gets off on the fighting amongst everyone in her area. And it was, just going back to your previous point, it was wild to hear how they just slaughter their families so that they can be the one in power. That's wild.
Crazy.
And basically having children is the worst thing imaginable for them, because then
Yeah.
they just are worried that their kids are going to kill them to be the heir. It's crazy. It sounds like a very toxic place.
Yeah, I just didn't.
If you're in the royal line.
Yeah, didn't love it. Was kind of just, okay, this doesn't seem like something you want to get involved in, but I guess the fact we learn later, we don't know this in part one, but also being Coriate, you could not hurt the person that you got this from, so it would basically save Vincent from Araya ever attacking him. Now, I'm going to sound, that doesn't stop anyone else from attacking him. Someone else could do it on her behalf, and then she could have the air mark or whatever. You know what I mean? It was just, you could get rid of your spawn, but
Yeah, you just need to be removed for the heir to move to the next person. It wasn't like you have to be, it has to be done by a certain, so yeah, that line of thinking doesn't really line up. But I think he also had such an ego where he was like, I've been in power for 200 years. I won this because he won the Kajari. I slaughtered my whole family. No one's going to mess with me. I'm so powerful. I think he thought everyone was scared of him. And that ends up being his downfall.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's a very good point. He was all sorts of interesting.
Yeah.
I did have a question, though, because we get a glimpse at, I think it's Vincent's throwing a party, basically, to see all of the contestants that Araya would be going against at the Kajari. And she sees some person looking at a painting specifically, and it's a Rashan vampire falling from the sky. And this is the other, I keep calling them clans, but it's basically the two clans within House of Night that have been fighting for thousands of years. They always have a battle. I can't figure out if it's supposed to be someone we know that is in this painting, or if it's just supposed to be symbolic of the downfall of that clan and Vincent taking over. I don't know if I'm thinking too much into it.
At this point, I'm leaning more towards symbolic for us. I'm sure it's someone that they know that we just haven't been introduced to. Because the only person I could really think of is the king, who is the one who we later find out turned Rain. Yeah. Maybe him, and like symbolizing his downfall, and Vincent kind of removing him from the picture. So it could be him, but if not, I'm leaning towards symbolic at this point
Symbolic.
of just like
Yeah.
overthrowing them. That's where I'm at.
And that's kind of where I was at too. I felt like it was just something that was specifically mentioned a few times in the first part that I said, okay, I don't know if it's going to be important, but I'm going to write it down and save it for later. Granted, we're only talking about book one, but I even still have a theory for if it could be in book two, or, you know, if it's down the line future of the six or whatever. I don't
Hmm.
know. So I guess
Yeah,
TBD.
it would be nice if we did find out who that person was. But yeah,
Yeah.
just like based off of where we're at in book one, I'm leaning towards.
Okay.
It's probably it's definitely someone, but I think for us it was just symbolic of them really loving that they overthrew the other group for power.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably more spot on than than the deep theories that I was going into. So I guess we can just go into part two. And the overview we had of this one is basically we are immediately into the Kajari. So Araya gave her blood. I think it was literally the night before, and it starts off. I'm just describing it as a bloodbath because it just sounded absolutely insane. The place that they are is the Moon Palace. So this is where the Kajari takes place. It's not only filled with contestants, but they have brought in a bunch of humans for people to feast on. Within this, we do meet a lot of the main characters we follow throughout the story, specifically Rain and Misha. And the first trial that also happens in this part has the contestants in larger groups fighting off demons. And with that, Araya notices that hitting the leader, I'm putting air quotes, in the heart would defeat them all. So a lot kind of goes on pretty quickly, but it does seem to be the pace for this entire book is you're kind of in there. With the first section, with the bloodbath and the humans just kind of being thrown in there, we get Alana's death. Gonna be the first
Rip.
one to say it right now. Did not think it was actually her dying. I thought it was mind tricks of her trying to go into the bloodbath, and then literally the chapter later goes, oh no, she actually did die. So I think that was just me overthinking it. But thoughts on that?
First of all, another like just really funny thing when they were like, "We're at the Moon Palace." I was like, double take, because my mom is a travel agent, and there is a hotel that she does a ton of destination weddings for called the Moon Palace. So it was like
Great.
that was really hard for me to like picture the setting because I'm picturing like an all-inclusive resort, and I was like, no, I need to think more like eerie gothic castle, I think. So that was throwing
Yeah.
me off. That's just a me thing. Fun little aside of like
I
the
really
name
hope
could
you
have been different for
continue
me.
to have these random fun things in each part because I'm loving it. I'm here for it.
I'll have to see if something sparks. Those are the two things that came up with these first two for me though. But this was crazy. First of all, it's like she just like pops up there. I was like, oh, giving
Yeah.
Harry Potter with the
Yeah.
apparating. But when they started killing each other and going nuts, I thought this was a trial at first, and I was very nervous because I was like, oh, I'm about to be let down with these trials. If this is going to be every trial, we do find out that this was just the culling. Basically, it was just to get the initial round of people out so that they had a smaller group for the trials, which makes sense. Alana's death threw me here. Now, I figured it was actually happening, but I did not like the timing of it because she's talking about throughout the whole book. And to me, I felt like as the reader, we have no clue anything about her. Like, we've picked up some context clues that they're friends, but we don't know her. We don't know really much about their bond. We get little snippets throughout the rest of the book that you can kind of piece together. Like, clearly this was an important person to Oriah in her life at the castle, but I wish we knew that before they killed her off, because to me it didn't have impact to me as a reader personally. I was just like, oh, okay, she's dead already. Cool.
Right. And I think that's why for me, I didn't think it was happening because I kind of just said, okay, I don't know if this is mind games to make people kind of lose it and again get rid of that first group of people that they don't need for the trials and stuff. So I'm trying to think of the palaces playing games with them to really just weed out the weak in a way. But I'm with you. Her death just wasn't impactful for me reading. I go, okay, Araya's friend died. I don't know what else to say. I don't know if this is cruel, but I think her dying in the future trial, which is the maze, would have been better, in my opinion. Make her one of the people that Araya is trying to save getting through the maze and make it more impactful, because we can get there in terms of how that one just felt a little bit easy compared to others. But I think it would have been more impactful if she thought her friend got out safe because she had told her and earlier on, get out of here, leave. But they kept her specifically for that. That would have been cool. As if death
I
should be
love that
cool.
idea. No, but that at least would have impact on the character and on us as the reader. Where like right now, the where it was, yeah, obviously impacted our character because he has a backstory with her, but we were not caught up on the backstory. And then even when we're getting the flashbacks throughout the book, to me, I was just like, I really don't care because she's gone. I knew her for one chapter and she was gone the next. I do not care that you kept her bloody scarf. I don't care. To me, I was just like, this is extra stuff I don't need to be reading because guess what? She's gone. She's not coming back. So anything that you had with her, gone.
Yeah, it wasn't as symbolic. I mean, even if as she goes forward with that scarf, it becomes a thing that she has with her down the line. It just wasn't as impactful. It was kind of just there. It was extra. I don't know if I'm just heartless and I'm supposed to feel more towards this character, but I didn't. There was
No,
nothing there. It
I
was,
felt nothing. I was more invested in the part where like the guy comes up behind her. We later find out it's Rain. She stabs him in the leg, and trying to figure out, is he gonna kill her? What's going on? Because obviously they can smell her. She's in a whole room of vampires. I was more invested in that part of the chapter than her friend dying. I was like, okay, rip, moving on. Who's this guy? What's gonna happen with him?
agreed. And I also clocked it very early on that he has to be someone that we see going forward. I didn't expect to meet him pretty closely after that, officially meet him, but that was super quick in terms of finding out who he is. I figured it was going to be someone who was going to either challenge her and purposely try to kill her down the line, but kept her alive for the little bit to get her into one of the trials. I don't know. I was going all different things, but yeah, her friend's death was kind of a, okay, let's move on to something else.
Yeah, rip. Honestly, too,
Yeah.
for him, I did not think that was going to be the love interest. I thought that, oh, this is going to be the villain. That's going to be kind of her enemy throughout the book. Which
Yes.
now that I'm even saying that, there really wasn't an enemy.
I,
It was just them
oh God, I don't know
bonding.
if,
And he kind of at the end, like, because of he betrays her, is like, I think supposed to be like, oh, he actually was an enemy this whole time, but he's also the love interest. I mean, yeah, we had Angelica and obviously the other contestants, but I don't really think any of them were doing anything crazy and specifically targeting her. They were just trying to get to the trials. I kind of wish we had that one person who was always targeting her and kind of going out of their way to cause trouble for her just to create more of that tension because now that I'm thinking I think that would have added to more of like the stakes of the trial because it
I
really just
agree
felt like
because
they were like, oh, at the palace you have to be worried about what's going on, but then outside of that one thing that happens at the end where they kind of lock them in, really it felt like the palace was a safe zone. She just hung out in the greenhouse and she was cool, and then she really only had to worry about everyone at the trials, and the trials were once every 3 weeks.
yeah, okay, I'm with you too. And I just didn't know if I was expecting way more because of some of the books we've read. I know we referenced this was similar to Hunger Games in the sense of you have different things that can happen, and that gets even more relevant down the line to the last trial that they, or last couple that they have. But there were points that felt fearful for her life, but it wasn't a consistent. It wasn't as if there were little down moments where she was safe. It literally felt super safe except for the moments where they were in bloodlust at that point and were, oh, we found a human, let's go for her blood. That's the only times I felt as if her life was at risk compared to when I think she was explaining going to the human districts and stuff. That felt more risky than this. I don't know. I could just be expecting a lot more, but
No, I completely agree. I felt like the little adventures to the human district were more adrenaline inducing than what she was facing in the trials because one, I was like, obviously she's gonna make it. Like they're not gonna kill her off. But I think that's my overall comment as we now get into the trials because then we can jump into trial one. Is I just felt, to me, I was in that Hunger Games mindset, and to me, they felt a little bit easy, and they didn't feel like they had super high stakes. And I think it's because when you read a book like Hunger Games, or also just other fantasy books that had trials, you hear at the end, like, she bonds with certain people, and then usually one of them dies in each of the trials. You're feeling the impact of, like, oh, people are actually leaving the story because they've been killed off. But she never really made connections with anyone outside of Rain and Misha, who go to the end with her. They're through the story pretty consistently. So we didn't get to know any of the people who were dying, and then sometimes they didn't even really show any of the deaths or talk about it on page. It was just like, and there's 19 contestants left. And I'm like, how many did we have going into this? How many got taken out? The only time I knew there was a significant impact was that third one, I think it was, the halfway point, when they say half the contestants will be eliminated in this. But I wish that we just had more connections with people so it felt more high stakes.
Oh no, I am with you 100%, and I'm gonna butcher his name, but Ibram, it's the one that was the vampire who his family basically ripped out his fangs, crippled one of his legs, and I think completely ripped off his wings. I felt so bad for this kid the entire time. That's the only person we have from the, I'll call it the outside world for Araya, that had some connection. But even him, we only get glimpses, and we really get him in a bigger chunk is during the maze trial and then at the end. But besides that, we don't get a lot from him, and I think it would have been nicer if they even just kept in touch during it of, yo, how you doing? You know, you're still alive? I don't know. It just something.
Just like, yeah, like a conversation or something. And I even made a note when we get to, I think it's like part 3, I wrote a note. Is there something more with him? Because they would always specifically call out that he survived. Why are they calling him out? Because they don't interact ever. She knew him from a party on the outside world, but they weren't friends on the outside. They're not friends on the inside. They're not really working together. They're not chit-chatting. They didn't feel like she was looking out for him. So why do you keep calling out that he survived? I knew his name because they brought it up so much, but other than that, he was not relevant to the story. So yeah, I think that's the part why it couldn't be a 5-star for me, because it was very focused on the 4 people, Vincent, Araya, Rain, and Misha. And outside of that, I felt like I really didn't know the other characters.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned about the world building, but also I think in that goes the character building of side characters, and there just wasn't as much depth of side characters that either we liked for a little bit or was intrigued on what was going to happen with them. Maybe they did die off, or maybe they continued into book 2. There were a few, but there weren't as many parts of it. I mean, I don't know if it's because Araya's life was so sheltered. Vincent kept her pretty much prisoner in the castle and said, you are not allowed outside of these quarters. So I don't know if we were supposed to feel that perspective, but as a reader, there's so much benefit of having side characters and little topics that just happen on the side. So to your point, why it wasn't a 5-star for me was it just didn't have that. I just loved everything that happened because it was cool, but it just didn't have that final, piece to bring us home.
And I'm thinking, when you read Hunger Games, you don't know all the characters, but there's at least 6 to 8 that you really get to know their backstory. So when they do get eliminated in the Hunger Games, you're like, oh, they're gone now. And I just did not feel that way with this. And that leads into the first trial, which ended up being a team trial. They're split up into groups and they're in these glass domes. And she tells us the names of who's in her little area, but then she never talked to them. It felt like they didn't even work together, to the point where I started to forget, oh, there's other people in this area with her. It really just became her and Rain. Once she figured out we have to kill the leader, it felt like everyone else just took a backseat and her and Rain just took care of it. Well, everyone else just sat around and did nothing.
Yeah, I think they kind of took a step back and said, oh, you know what? These two have it. We'll just hang out here. We're not going to risk our life. Those two can risk their life. And then if we need to, we'll step in and figure it out. And, 2 people gone, 2 less people have to fight down the line. I don't know. It was just really weird. But to your point that Rain was there as well. And they kind of sensed immediately that they were on the same pathway of, okay, this is what we have to do. There was some stuff that just now really talking about is, oh, wow, that wasn't there. And I kind of wish it was.
That's a good point that maybe they were thinking, oh yeah, you two go, and if you don't make it, two less people I have to take out in the end. And then they make it through, and Rain, Misha's like in a different group, and so he kind of gives her like a signal of like, you gotta take out the leader. So I feel like you could see their bond, but I don't know. It was just weird that she didn't really go out. I mean, granted, Vincent basically told her, don't go near anyone. So maybe that was just her training kicking in, but I wish she would have made a little bit of friendship.
And this is gonna sound so mean, but someone to mourn over down the line. I mean, come on, give me
Yes.
someone to be upset about, 3-4 parts down the line of let me feel something other than, okay, they've won again. When's it gonna get difficult? Or when is some big bomb gonna come down on them? You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
just
Yeah, it felt like nothing. Yeah, because you do see later in later parts where the one where they have the mind thing, and she takes out one of the partners, and the other one is crying because, oh my God, my partner just was killed. It's like she never had that ability because she wasn't connected to anyone except for Rain, and they
yeah.
were already always connected at the hip, anyways. So I just felt like she doesn't really have a stake in the game. She doesn't care. Literally from this beginning, I was like, oh my God, it's going to come down to the two of them because that's the only way to have an impactful ending. Because if it came down to her and anyone else, she'll have no problem killing them.
Yeah, agreed. There was, besides Angelica, there wasn't a huge enemy that we were trying to get rid of that would have caused a huge issue. I mean, we get someone towards the end that definitely I think is more leading towards book 2, but yeah, just there wasn't anyone that you were rooting for the two of them to go after that maybe took away one of them at some point and then they had to fight on their own. It was odd, but
Yeah,
uh, you
definitely
know,
odd. There were two other
yeah.
things in this part that I was like a little about.
Yeah.
First was Rain basically right out the gate being like, I want to team up with you. And I was like, why do you want to team up with her? Because he also had done that crazy demonstration of his power where everything basically went like black and white and crazy. You clearly are very powerful. Why are you trying to team up with the only human? Suspicious. Right off the bat. Because I'm like, no one
Yep.
else is trying to talk to her. No one else is trying to befriend her. She's just the underdog. So why is the most powerful? So I was like, there's a motive here. What's the motive? I don't know. But there's a motive here. So suspicious. The second thing that was kind of weird to me, and I already had weird feelings about Vincent because I was confused why he took in a human. But right after the culling, she sneaks out and meets up with him. And he gives her poison daggers and tells her, use them sparingly because I don't know when I'm gonna be able to get you more to refill them. And then he gives her a little thing of healing potion. And then after this, she was hurt and she went to go meet up with him again and he just didn't show up. And I was like, so you guys had
Yes.
pre-planned
Yep.
to meet up after all these things so he could give you supplies or whatever you needed. And then he comes for the first one, and then the time that you actually needed him, he wasn't there. So then I started being suspicious of
Yeah.
what are you doing that you can't be there for your daughter?
I'm with you 100%. He was super suspicious the entire time. I just did not know what his motives were. I did not know what his goals were, really. I mean, his goal was to stay in power and the Rashan basically to be nothing but a memory. But when he didn't show up to meet her, I go, what is so much more important? Specifically, when you keep telling her, you are a human in a world destined to kill you. You need to do this to stay safe. I'm the only one that you can trust. She's literally trying to trust you and make sure if there's something wrong or something she can do to go forward, but you just don't show up. It was super weird. Clocked him immediately.
Yeah, I agree. Like right off the bat, part one, I'm like, suspicions on you two, which continued throughout the whole book. But that's all
Yeah.
my thoughts from what happened at this first little trial.
Yeah,
I don't know
that
if
was
you
it
have
for me
anything
too. So, part 3 was the waning moon. And after Araya is attacked in the greenhouse, she ends up agreeing to stay with Rain and Misha in one of the larger apartments. And that's where their alliance pretty much goes. But in this trial specifically, the contestants are in the maze and having to find their way out, and they have to basically sacrifice people to be able to get out so that they can get to the next phase. But unbeknown to everyone else, there are humans within the maze being killed, and Araya is beyond furious with this and ends up saving a young girl within the maze with Rain's help. So this really solidifies their partnership more than I think Araya wanted to. So we get a lot of that starting off here and kind of building that friendship and everything. I have a couple comments about the first part. So she gets attacked in the greenhouse, and I think she ends up killing, or Rain helps her kill the person. I forget how the events went down. But Angelica basically starts freaking out, and it goes, "You killed one of my blood-born vampires," and whatever. And then Rain tells her that the vampire attacked Araya in the greenhouse, which she just pauses and then says, okay, whatever, and moves forward. We don't get confirmation on why Angelica pauses at the moment that Rain says she was attacked in the greenhouse. My only thought is because the greenhouse is wide open and the fact that there's so much more sunlight that it led them to believe that this person, specifically bloodborne vampires, have that curse, which they basically turn into animals at the end and kind of just lose their mind. That my guess was this was a sign to Angelica, hey, your guy was pretty much way far gone. There was no saving him. The best way was killing him, a quick death. I don't know if you picked up on anything else or if that was probably just the assumed thing, but it was really weird how they had this conversation about the greenhouse and then just left it and nothing else happened.
I was on the same path as you, where I just assumed maybe it had something to do with he was sick, because she specifically picked the greenhouse because of the sun to keep them away. At this point too, I still was a little confused on the born curse. It probably was early signs that he was pretty much going down quick, because it seemed like once that curse really escalated to that point, it then went quickly from there. So I'm leaning towards it was, like you said, a sign that he wasn't going to last much longer.
It was just really weird to be a specific conversation unless it was meant for us to see the drastic change of the bloodborne vampires once the curse really takes, control of their life pretty much. Is okay, it's a flip of a switch and there they go. That's it. There's no changing them. That's kind of where they end up.
It
so
sucks for them that they have that curse. But they got cursed by the goddess, so they're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's any fixing it.
Good luck trying to. Yeah.
The greenhouse too, I think also is really where we start to see the first little signs of Rain missing his humanity, because throughout the book you'll notice he'll stand in the sunlight for as long as he possibly can withstand it, and then later we find out he says to Araya that's the thing he misses the most. This is where we get confirmation that he was a turned vampire, and we find out like the survival rate, all that.
And we talked about this earlier, that because he was turned, he has a lot of his humanity. Even the fact that it has been over 200 years since he was turned, I never got the sense that he was a vampire. In an entire book of vampires, he just felt so light and goofy in ways. Yes, he was strong and a huge warrior in that sense, but he just did not give off vampire vibes, and I kept forgetting we were in a vampire book until they went to trials or she was getting attacked or whatever. But in terms of when it was with him, it felt very normal, and I don't know if that again brings to the whole there wasn't as much danger to me, because he just felt so normal. I don't know. I don't know how else to explain him.
No, I agree with you. Everyone else kind of seemed like they were really bloodthirsty all the time and wanting to kill, and he didn't really give off those vibes. He didn't seem like he was super interested in power, which we find out later. If he came out and was like, oh, I'm a human too, I would be like, oh, that tracks. Like, I felt like he had a similar personality to her. And then Misha was literally golden retriever energy, like little puppy. So excited. I'm like, you're going to come stay with us, blah, blah, blah. They were crazy.
Yeah,
they were
she
an
was
interesting
definitely,
pair.
I think, I love them so much. And I think she just was so excited to have a third person in their group of just, oh, yay, another friend that I can have and someone else that isn't Rain because he's kind of miserable at times too. And they definitely had that brother sister vibe. And just having Araya in there, I think, was really good for their dynamic. So I liked it, the three of them. It was really fun. It added a lot of light to the rest of the book.
Yes, and they have a lot of constraint because neither of them ever tried to attack her or do anything. They just only try to make her feel safe, so good for them.
The other thing that was interesting too in this section, now you had mentioned earlier that there's a huge gap pretty much between each of the trials. It's about 3 weeks. They're kind of just chilling. There's really nothing going on. She basically just goes out and continues her killing spree in the human district. Rain obviously sees her and says, okay, I've seen more from you here attacking vampires with your strategy and your attack and everything than I do when we're actually doing our training sessions. We should just continue to do this. So I loved how they kind of made it a game of let's just go kill a bunch of vampires who feed on innocent humans who are just chilling here trying to enjoy their life. And I just thought it brought, again, Rain back to his humanity of the fact that he still cared for the humans. It wasn't as if he just got rid of them and said, okay, whatever, I'm vampire, now I'm superior or anything. He still kept on to that.
Yeah, I like that they did their training in a real life scenario and it helped them build their partnership and learn how each other fought, which was nice. And I love how she kept pointing out, I'm watching how he fights and all that, but he's also watching me, so I have to be careful. Because at this point, they think they're going to kill each other, but we all knew that they weren't going to. And we also find out that Vincent has no clue she does this. He does not know that she sneaks out to the human district and she kills the vampire. So he's unaware of this secret life she's living.
Yeah, and I think what she says, she's been doing it for 6 years too, so it wasn't a new thing.
I also found it kind of surprising that they were allowed to leave the palace in between waiting for the trials. I mean, they had to be back before dawn, I think, but I think that was just honestly because of the sun situation. I don't really know if what would happen if they didn't come back before then. But I thought that was weird. I think it would have been more high stakes if they were literally stuck in that thing part of outside of the trials. You also had to be worried about when you're sleeping at night or when you're going about your day, someone could kill you in the hallway.
She literally could have hung out with Vincent still for the time that she had, and then just, like you said, went back for daylight before, their time limit was up pretty much, and then did the same thing the next night. It would have been simple enough.
I just didn't love as a detail. I think it's more interesting when they're kind of secluded at a place. But I see why they did it because they needed them to be able to go to the human district. But I wish we were forced to be in here, but we found a way to sneak out one night to go do this. So, I don't know.
Yeah. The only other piece I had was we meet Septimus, who had bet on Araya winning the first trial. Now, we don't know his name at this point. He literally just gives her the cigarette at this point, pretty much just after killing someone. She kind of just
You mean a cigarello?
Oh, cigarello, that's what it was. Sorry, I was like, what the fuck was this called? She just takes it from a stranger, whatever, and he goes along lines of, oh yeah, I bet on you, good luck, thank you, whatever, and just moves on. But obviously we find out who he is down the line, so he ends up being an important character. But it was just really interesting how, for all her facts that she's been trained to be super safe with everything, she just goes up to this random person, goes, yeah, I'm just gonna hang out with you quick. No big deal. I was just, what is wrong with you? I don't know.
Her training very quickly went out the window. She was ignoring everything she had been told. I agreed. I was so confused why she was just going up and taking a cigarette from this random man. And then I was like, they're doing bets? What? It doesn't even, I know that there was an audience, but they didn't really highlight it too much. It just felt like no one was really invested in this. So then to hear they were betting on each other, I was like, so the whole area is invested in this? I'm so confused. These are the details that were missing for me.
Agreed. Yeah, it was ways to bring other people into the story, but was confusing on why it was brought in that way. Oh, the other part, sorry, the maze specifically, I completely forgot to mention that. We had talked about the fact that she ends up saving a human girl from this. What was wild to me was the fact that they, again, brought in humans just for fun. The maze did not feel as difficult, except for you had to beat your contestant that was in the same section as you, put them on the button, and then you ran through the door. But I felt like the humans were just added there as a way for Araya to be pissed off. But I didn't see any other value. I mean, obviously for the vampires to feast on, but I just didn't know how that made it difficult.
I think honestly they're just in there as a way for the vampires to show we're the more dominant of the two groups. Like, you're here for our entertainment and for our sport and our games. You're not here for anything else. Her happening to be a human in there, I do think obviously it pissed her off, but I don't think they were put in there specifically for her. They're probably always in it. The thing that threw me off though here, because she was partnered up with Ibrahim and had to put him on the button. I thought he died. And then all of a sudden he shows up at the end. This is where I made the note. Is there something going on with him? Because to me, I was confused. How did you make it through if you needed someone to lay on the button? Unless he found a dead body and he threw it on there. I'm confused how he got through. I was thinking, is someone helping him through because he serves a bigger purpose? He is going to be a bigger character. Kind of a flop when we find out what ends up happening with him. But that part threw me off. And then going back to what you said at the beginning, I completely agree with you. This would have been the perfect place to have Alana. It would have created higher stakes, especially if maybe at the end she didn't make it and then she's having to ruminate over that if she couldn't save her friend. That would have been way better than this random girl that we don't really care about.
Yeah, agreed. I understand the importance of the fact that she was able to save at least one of the humans out of this area. She still does have that strong tie to wanting to save the humans and the human district and everything. But yeah, I think Alana's part in this would have been so much better for the impact. And also the fact the next part is the Half Moon trial, which was the ending of Rain and Araya's partnership, because they just needed to get through this part together. So I think it would have been even better the fact that they couldn't save her. I think it would have added extra element to the fact that they were pretty much done with each other at this point.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Did you want to jump right into the Half Moon one?
Sure. Yeah, you already brought it up, so.
Yeah. All right. So while out on their bonding, training, killing spree is what we're calling it, Rain and Araya see the Moon Palace attacked. So they immediately fly back. Well, Rain flies back holding Araya, and Misha was injured during the attack. So basically leaving Rain super pissed and terrified for her, and then he gets her out of the place and then comes back for Araya and gets her out as well. But with this, they specifically try to put a blessing in with Nyaxia for her to be withdrawn from the Kajari, because she's just not going to be capable of completing the trials. Vincent is convinced at this point, and pretty much for the future, that the attack was from the Rashan, and that basically he's going to torture all of the Rashan fighting, regardless of the Kajari or wherever. So he ends up obviously having his guard question Rain. And then that kind of leads into the Half Moon trial, which has the group separated and they have to fight their way to the exit. We had kind of mentioned this, I think, before, but the big twist was really they could sense each other's emotions and see through each other's eyes with that mind bonding potion. So they kind of have to not only deal with themselves getting out, but they can see what other things are going on and feel what their partner is going through as well. So that adds just a little bit of extra element to getting the hell out of there into safety. And I think you had said at this point, this is also when half would only make it. So if it was an uneven number, it was half and that's it. So they kind of had to really fight to get out of there fast. So in terms of the Moon Palace being attacked and everything, did you also believe it was the Rashan that were attacking, or did you think it was something different?
I thought it was a different group. Only because Rain said something like, there's no way that they could have done this. And so I was like, oh, okay, he must be tuned in. He's a Rashan. So I thought it was a different group, but I was like, there's no way that they're going to have Misha and Rain compete till the end against each other. So I had a feeling there was like they needed a way for one of them to get out so that they could both be safe. So I was like, okay, this is a perfect opportunity for that to happen. But this is when I really started to go down the path of, is Oriah more than a human? Because, like you mentioned, they try and make an offering to Nyaxia to basically get Misha withdrawn because she submits her thing, her request, they deny it. And so then Oriah feels like it's her responsibility to go and find another way. So she goes to their temple, and I'm just going to call it a minister. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to say it. But essentially, Oriah uses like the one thing she has to her advantage where she thinks she's a human. And so she offers him her blood as a way to get Misha approved to leave the trials. And he makes a comment after he drinks her blood, and he basically says that it tasted better than human blood. And this is
I
where
missed that.
I was like, ding, 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 ding. I've been having a feeling because throughout the book, we've been noticing that she has like magic. And again, this is where the world building fell flat. We still don't know, like, do all humans have magic in this world? Or is that a random thing? It should have been a telltale sign that she's half human, half vampire. Also, just the way she communicates with Vincent in her head, I was like, things are not really adding. Something feels off about this, her being the only human in there. Why aren't other people submitting? So I had suspicions.
I am gonna say right now, I did not pick up on this. I did not see that one sentence, but that makes so much sense. Because what else would she be if she wasn't literally the two that are here? I mean, it's not like they've introduced any other being of sorts. It's pretty much just humans and vampires. That's it. Damn, I have no notes because I had nothing on this. But I think that is a great piece of information that totally changes how that section is read, basically, and understood.
Also, we find out Misha is a turned vampire here, and we also find out Misha is the reason why Rain is in the trials. So we just got more on like their backstory. The other only kind of like bigger piece here for me was also we find out that Misha has all these burn marks all over her. I thought it was from her life as a human. No, it turns out she's using power of a different god, and every time she uses that power, it leaves burn marks on her. So that was kind of the other thing we learned here.
Which was interesting too because the god that she worshipped when she was a human was one from the white pantheon, and they do not like Nyaxia, and this whole entire trial competition is basically Nyaxia's path from being imprisoned by the white pantheon and her escape. So literally every single one of the trials is a piece of her journey, which I will say, as much as I felt like the trials were a little bit lacking in terms of excitement or intensity, I did like the fact that it did go back to Nyaxia. The whole point why they're doing this is literally just for her and her enjoyment.
Yeah,
so
I liked that too. And I liked that she would give us the background of what the journey was, so we were caught up on kind of what was going on. This was my favorite trial, though, that they had in the whole book.
I agree. I really liked when they all of a sudden could start hearing each other, but could feel where the other person was, but not in their own body. Weird when they start getting attacked and they can feel the pain of the other. Crazy.
That would trip me out so hard. Also, they wake up and they're in a dark cell. So they have to one figure out how to get out of wherever they are. Then they finally get out into a giant pit and they think they're going to be together, and then they realize they're separated. So they're fighting on opposite sides of a wall and only really able to communicate through their mind. And then you had to be cautious because what if she started thinking something in her head that she didn't want him to know? He was going to know it. So I thought that was cool. And I had alluded or mentioned it earlier, but also knowing that like they could see who the other person was taking down. So then they used that to try and figure out like, okay, who's their partner? He would take someone down and then she'd look to see who felt pain. And then she'd be like, oh, that was their partner. I'm taking them. So then it was cool how they started to use it to their advantage.
Yeah, you could really tell. I mean, I know this was the one and only thing they were training for together, but you really could tell it was the start of them being a very good duo in the sense of battle, regardless if they ended up having, you know, a romantic relationship or anything. Just the fact that they could sense where the other could use assistance or, do this. So I really liked that. I thought it was a really cool element. And yeah, to your point, I think this was probably my favorite too. I
There's
think it
things
was
that you just
the
know going
coolest
into it.
out of
Okay,
the
this is
group of trials. So part 5 was the crescent moon section.
Right.
And just like you had said, they didn't need to continue being allies, but they don't separate. They pretty much, after the joy of the fact that her power is extravagant in that last trial, they just stay together and hang out, and that's pretty much it. But this is where things get interesting because the palace basically locks everyone inside. So to your point earlier, how they had so much freedom, they are now literally locked inside, but they also have limited food and resources. And they also had a feast where they had a bunch of abundance, basically, of food and everything. And Rain and Araya were smart. They did store up on stuff ahead of time, knowing that this was probably going to happen, the fact that they're going to get locked in. But this does create a frenzy within the whole area, so they pretty much just lock each other into the apartment as well. So not only are they locked in this palace, but they're stuck into forced proximity. Then when they get to the trial, after the 3 weeks that they're stuck in there, they are placed within the woods, and they need to make their way out of the woods far across the land, basically to an exit. I don't even know how to explain this, but pretty much just a journey. But through that journey in the woods, everything that is there that could be eaten has a poison or something within it that basically creates them to go absolutely mad and just takes over their mind, and they destroy everything in sight. But then when they get past that, they have this poisonous fog they have to get through. So this is probably the most intense out of the group in the sense of things that could kill you 100%.
All of the sections start with like an intro, but I was like just curious, is this kid gonna come back around? Like, it was someone she met at a party, so he must be kind of important in this area of his family's being invited to a party at the castle. So I don't know, that was a question I had of like, is he important to the House of Night? What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know either because, like you said, all of the interludes basically are going through this story. And, I mean, I understand why it's a valuable story to go through because it does a lot in terms of her growth through the book. But, yeah, I don't know who this person was. I question if they'll get brought up in a future book or if it really was just to serve the purpose of a story and that's it and move forward. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's a big piece of the book because it's in every single one of the interludes. It's not like it's just a little flashback and that's it.
Yeah, it was all like leading to this part of the story. So yeah, that was just kind of my first thought I had.
I had a different thought. So when she is telling Vincent her story, it basically says it in, I think, his point of view is he made a decision in that moment. The young woman did not know it, not yet. I don't know what decision this is. Do you have any idea?
I'm leaning towards maybe the decision was he is deciding that he wants her to live, and or maybe at this point he was considering turning her into a vampire, full vampire, and maybe he was like, you know what, I'm just gonna let her stay her thing, and this is where he introduced the idea of doing the bond. That's what I was thinking. Maybe it has something to do with the bond that was being...
Yeah, because to your point, I don't remember if we get him explaining the bond when she's younger or if it is this point is the turning point for him. Mm-hmm. That, because again, when we find out that it's her, he's her father, we get so much about children are such a liability, but they want their line to continue, but they don't want them to be a threat, so they do the crippling like they did to Ibram and everything. So I just don't know if this was his, like you said, his point of, okay, I want her to be fully mine, that she's safe in this world, that she won't have to worry about this as much. Because he already had started her training pretty much from a young age. I mean, that started early, but...
Yeah, the only other thing I could think of is maybe in his mind he was going back and forth, like, should I kill her? Should I keep her alive?
Right.
Because she would be his heir, and if she ever found out, that would be dangerous for him. So maybe at this point she was close to dying, and as the parent, maybe it was so heartbreaking to him that he was just like, we're not going with that plan. I
Yeah.
will run the risk of her maybe coming after me one day, but I don't want to get rid of her. I don't know. I'm hoping
Yeah.
we get some confirmation of what that is in a future book.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, and this is when they have that big party.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she goes outside. Rain is talking to Septimus, and this is when she first is referred to as Nessanin. I think is how you say it. That's at
Yeah.
least phonetically how it looks. And I started thinking, oh, is that her real name? And he renamed her to Oriah because she was living in a different area when she was brought. Like, I don't know how old she was when
Yeah.
she came to live with him. So I was thinking, maybe she was young enough where she didn't know her real identity and he changed it to protect her or something. I was thinking that was her name.
Oh
Later
my
we find
God.
out she is the king's wife of the guy who turned Rain, but that's what I was thinking at first. And I was like, oh, what's about to happen here? She has a different
Okay.
identity. I was
See, I
wrong, very
clocked it.
wrong.
See, I clocked it as a previous love, relationship, whatever, of Rain's. I just didn't know to what extent of did he kill her by accident. I figured it was something that he did. He was the reason why she was dead or something, not from it being other events, obviously. But yeah, that would have been an interesting one if that was actually her name this whole time. Ooh, I would have liked that twist. That would have been cool.
I was wrong, though, very wrong. And then my only other comment for this section is jumping into the trial part, but this is really when I was like, so I'm already thinking she's more than human. And then
Yeah.
here I'm thinking, is she already bonded to Vincent? Because she kept being able to like hear his voice in her head. Now, part of me was like, okay, maybe it's just because the years of training, it's kind of just drilled in. And when someone like trains you and you start to anticipate what they would say in that moment if they were there with you. So I was like, okay, that could definitely be part of it. But the other part was like, maybe they already did some type of weird bond thing and he can get into her head and relay messages because some of it was so specific to what was going on in the moment. And then I was thinking, because again, I'm so suspicious of him at this point, and I was thinking of it more in like a nefarious way, that he was basically sending her into the Kajari, kind of hoping maybe she didn't survive, but on the off chance she did, oh, have her wish for this bond, but we've already done a bond, so really she's not getting anything that she doesn't already have. So it was a win-win situation for him. I really thought he was a bad guy.
Ooh, I mean, again, to your point at the beginning, who was the bad guy for this whole book? And I feel like he still is indirectly because of what we learn about him, but not bad in the sense of someone who was a villain going at her constantly. It was just things that he did in the past that made her who she was now or start questioning things. But yeah, that would have been interesting if they went that route for the situation. I mean, I like it. Would have been again another twist I would have been here for. The only other thing I had here, which I thought was a very sweet moment, which again brought in why that they were definitely the romance group for sure, and there was no one else, was when, you know how you had said earlier on that he really misses the sunrise, how she sets up all the mirrors for him to be able to see it, but still is hidden. I just said that is so sweet, and she seems like such a tough person that her doing this little sweet gesture was probably the large thing that she's probably done her whole life.
It was so cute, and the way she spent so much time just like figuring out all the angles the mirrors need to be at. Oh, so sweet.
I loved it. I loved it a lot. One other thing, during the trial, they have to fly over through the poisonous fog, which I think you clocked it as it was very much Hunger Games in the sense of the clock was moving and the time and everything. But this was a super powerful moment where Vincent was super villain in my mind for Oriah because he completely destroyed where she was from. The whole entire area that they were flying over was because his Astrus had completely destroyed everyone and everything within. And that was just such a turning point of, okay, she's going to start questioning her father a lot more than she has already. And it was a lot.
And that pissed me off too because one, you guys were meeting up for things, so you could have filled her in. You chose not to. And two, he knew her biggest thing was after she won, she wanted to go back to the area she was from to see if she had any family remaining and connect with them because he is not allowed to enter that area because it's a Rishon area. She would have been able to, and the whole point of the bond was for her to have his powers so that if she went in there and anything bad happened to her, she could protect herself. And so he knew that was her biggest goal coming out, and then he went and he destroyed the whole area. Asshole.
Yeah, agreed. I did not like it. It really had me hating him at this point. I was suspicious of him, but now I started hating him more on top of the suspicion.
Yep. Same. Same.
Yeah.
And she was pissed.
Oh, yeah. Rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
Because any living family were completely demolished if they were still there.
Yeah. Yep.
Terrible.
So all of her family is essentially gone at this point.
Yeah.
If she had any left, because she had no clue.
Yeah. Ugh. Crazy. All right. So I guess I can just lead us right into the next section, which is New Moon. Araya confronts Vincent and he doesn't deny it. He doesn't even seem to feel bad about it. He has had this mindset that humans are pretty much just livestock for the vampires, that this is it. That's who they are. That's what they were basically allowed to be. You know, there was nothing else supposed to be for them there except basically just to allow the vampires to feed from them. For the rest of the section, basically Rain and Araya, their relationship starts to grow, and that even though, like we said before, they were thinking of killing each other, there's just probably no side in mind that this is going to happen. So the final trial has the 4 contestants that are left over: Angelica, Rain, Araya, and Ibram, and they have to fight resemblance of the gods. So pretty much it's people that they had faced and killed during the Kajari are put together to look like the gods. So weirdly messed up in my mind of what they have to face, but they have to defeat these and then pretty much go to the last part of the final trial, which is if they made it out, they have to fight each other until there's one person standing. So that is what we get here. First thoughts about this section.
Okay, well, this section is where we have the full spicy scene. We also forgot to mention, I think it's the previous section, there is a little bit of a spice scene.
Yeah.
This is where we get the full one. Honestly, this is crazy coming out of my mouth. I didn't think we needed it. I really did not think we needed spice in this book. Because with the trials going on and their relationship, I thought the yearning and kind of the tension between the two of them and the developing of the feelings was enough for me. I mean, I'll take a spice scene, but I wouldn't have been upset if it did not happen in this book because I felt like there was so much other things going on. Honestly, thought it was okay. Nothing crazy, nothing super memorable.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I didn't actually expect this series to be where there'd be spice scenes like that. I just figured it would be more
Like a
off
Throne
page,
of Glass.
maybe. Yeah, exactly. Where it's like you have some romance, but it's not
Like, you know
necessarily
they're together, but yeah.
Yeah, you know, a little bit or whatever, or just kind of, you know, well placed in terms of the book. I thought it was a good spot because of everything they had gone through so far. But again, I think this kind of goes to my comments and your comments too about it being pretty laid back of a competition. Is just, yeah, the trials were brutal, but there was so much downtime that then they have this moment. I don't think it was needed. It was nice, but that's it. It was just nice.
They had a lot of downtime. That's a great way to put it. But then once this was like their last hurrah before the trial because they're like, well, you know, we'll
We
love
might
each
die.
other before we have to kill each other tomorrow. The trial. I thought that was so disgusting that the previous contestants were brought back as basically like puppets of the gods. Gross when she figured that out, and then she had to dismantle them. It was disgusting. No. Was not a fan of that. And then this part also blew up my theory of Ibrahim because now I'm like, the whole point of him was just to show like an underdog story.
Yeah.
Which, like, I did not need that. She's already the underdog. I did not need a second one. And then, she had like a moment where she paused and she really didn't want to kill him, but she knew she had to. She only pondered it for like 0.3 seconds, and then he was like, I'm glad it was you who killed me. I did not like that. I wanted him to serve a bigger purpose because I felt like they spent so much time after every trial having to point out specifically that he was alive. So I don't know. I'm hoping maybe in book 2 he comes back in some way, like his memory or something about him, because why did you waste so much time specifically calling him out? Why didn't you focus on Angelica? She also made it to the end. Why didn't you focus on any other contestant that was in this? You specifically focused on him just for her to have to kill him, and she didn't really even have that much more remorse about it.
No, it was more of a, I feel bad doing this because of all of the stuff you had to deal with in your life, but I knew if it had to be me or you, I'm going to obviously choose myself and I'm going to have to kill you anyway. So yeah, I had said, was his purpose truly for the fact that she had to kill someone that wasn't an enemy of sorts? It was just someone who really was looking for a better life. I don't know. To your point, I think he was the only side character, I would call him, that we got anything from, but it wasn't as if his story grew while he was there. It was just oh, he's still alive. I don't know how he made it through that, and that's kind of it. It wasn't...
Yeah, there was many parts where he should have not lived. I don't know how he did, based off the state of his body. And then he was mangled at the end of this when she killed him. So it wasn't even like he was going to make it much farther anyway. So it really, I felt like I was annoyed more. Like, you could have done something here with him and you didn't. Also, then she goes on to fight. She kills him. She goes on to fight Angelica. And she's coming at her. Angelica's coming at Araya. And then all of a sudden she just stops. Did you feel like someone interfered with Angelica at the end, because she was going hard at Araya, and then it felt like she just dead stopped what she was doing? And the way I was interpreting it is that the scene in Harry Potter when the Quidditch game's happening and someone in the stand is controlling the broom and starts going crazy, that's all I could picture.
Yeah, so I clocked it immediately as, why is she stopping? Because she was super furious the fact that in the past trial, Rain had killed her, I'm guessing her significant other, and basically threw him off and just destroyed him so that he wasn't going to make it. So I thought that she was going to try to kill Araya, but I didn't know who it was that was in the crowd. And another part that made me think what is going on was when Araya was pretty much about to die, because Angelica had her in that point. Araya looks over her shoulder and sees Rain, and then she sees him nod. And I go, okay, 2 people just randomly had something go on. What was this? I read it a couple times, so I wanted to make sure that I actually read that correctly. But yeah, it was immediate that something was happening, because she wouldn't have stopped. I mean, the entire time, Angelica is known for being ruthless and just killing everyone, does not care. Something was going to happen. But the fact that someone had that enough power over her just to say, no, you don't have to do it. You need to die. You have to sacrifice yourself for the greater good. I didn't get it.
It was so sudden, and I was like, something's going on here. Also, I totally knew going into this, especially after they had the spicy scene, that it was going to end up being the 2 of them left at the end, and someone was going to have to either sacrifice themselves or kill the other one. And I don't know, but I felt like it was definitely going to come down to the 2 of them. And then once it finally did, I said, oh, one of them's going to die. The other one is going to use their wish to bring them back to life, because they're so tied to each other at this point. Neither of them are going to continue living without the other when they're obsessed with each other. So that's exactly what happens. They fight. Rain basically forces Araya to stab him in the heart, kills himself, and she does not even second guess it for 3 seconds. The second the goddess comes, she just is like, she doesn't say she wants him back to life. She just says, my wish is for Rain to win. And so I'm like, what is your thought process here? Because I was then expecting for her to die.
Yeah.
Because why would, if he won, then you'd be dead. So I was a little surprised and then I thought he would come back to life, find out he won and she was now dead, and he would say, well, I want her to bring her back to life. And that's what the wishes would be used on. So I was a little surprised that they kept her alive.
Yeah, what was interesting too is they had made it known a few times throughout the book that there was only one Kajari that more than one person won, that they allowed, I think, two people to win. So I kept trying to figure out, was this that loophole of, oh, Nyaxia didn't just kill me right away, the fact that he died, but I don't win? I didn't understand. I I thought that I had a little bit different view. I didn't think that one was gonna die and wish the other was alive. I thought Araya was gonna wish to be Rain's Coriate and I guess in a way allow him to be alive, but then say I want to tie myself to him, and that would be it. That way they couldn't attack each other in a way because the fact that he had forced her to kill him. But it was just weird. I didn't understand. I was trying to figure out her thought process there. Because to your point, would she have just died? It was a lot of confusion of that ending, in all
Yeah.
honesty.
But then once Rain comes back and he then goes to do his wish and he's like, I wish for the Rishan airline to be reestablished. They make a little comment about how Nyaxia loves when the children are squabbling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think maybe she knew Rain was the heir. And she was like, well, let's see how this plays out because then this will cause problems between the two of them because he's going to be the heir going against her dad. So I think maybe she could see the drama that could unfold. No, she's been around for 2,000 years. She needs entertainment. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe that was the only reason why she let the both of them because of that, like, dynamic that was at play. That was wild, though, when he instantly was just like, I'd like to be the heir. I'm like, oh, I freaking knew it. The way that he kept talking about the Rishan, he was a guard before, something just felt off. And they really highlighted these two areas, and they're never going to rise to power because they don't have an heir. I just felt like there had to be something more for him. I did not expect him to go and literally kill Vincent, though. That shocked me.
Yeah, agreed. One comment quick about the him having the air mark.
Hmm.
I should have picked up on it earlier because at some point, I think when he was injured, she is trying to heal him and his wounds and everything, and she sees a massive burn mark on his back and is confused on what it is. And it was very specific, and then we never get any story of how he got that because we do get a story of how he was
Yeah, it
turned
was
and
a big
everything.
triangle.
Right. So should have clocked it as something to look at going forward, but
Hmm.
again, was kind of oblivious. But yeah, to your point, did not expect him to kill Vincent at that point. I just figured that it would be okay, I have an air mark as well, so we either need to have a Rashawn King as well as you, or do we need to now duel it out for power or something? I don't know. I didn't expect it to be like an immediate, I'm killing you right here. Goodbye. You get no final
Yeah,
say.
that was wild. And then wild card. She ends up getting the air mark for like the Hiaj, whatever, however the hell you say their thing,
Yeah.
their side. And that's how we then find out that she was actually Vincent's biological daughter, making her a half vampire. And so my two questions are, who is her mother? Because her mother must be Rishan. She was in that area. So why was he sleeping with a Rishan woman? I need more on that. And
I have no
two,
idea.
what does this mean for her lifespan? Because if her and Rain are going to be together, she does not seem to want to turn into a full vampire. So, are they going to be together? She was just going to be like 90 and gray and wrinkly, and he's going to look 32 still. Does she now get to live longer? What is happening there between the two of them?
I don't know. Great question because I thought the same thing of do we get any information on her mother and how that life was, because I had the assumption that when Vincent saved her that he had killed all of her family or her family had died and he heroically saved her from that tragic situation. So I just don't know, is the mom dead as well or is she alive in somewhere, and maybe that's why he couldn't go back. Maybe she's of, I was trying to think of, was she royal blood in the Rashan area? I literally had so many ideas of what her mother could be basically and why he was with her. I have no idea. I was just questioning if it's only going to be flashbacks that we get and that's it, or if we're going to get details. I kind of hope we get details.
Yeah, I need that in book two. Just a little, give me a sentence about what's going on with her mother. But I think this does transition us nicely into what happens in the last part.
Yeah. Yeah, so pretty much the last part is post winning, and like we said, that Rain wishes to have the air mark, and then he kills Vincent, and then also declares Araya as his wife to be, and parades around, basically making sure that the Rashan don't kill her, and that she's valuable in the sense of, I'm gonna use her. She's just gonna be kind of my slave in a way, because they obviously want to kill her immediately because she has the air mark as well, but he tries to keep her alive. So not the best way to go about it, but I understand why he did it, because he has to play the part of not allowing them to kill her right away and see her kind of, being toyed around with pretty much.
They're not really accepting of him being the heir because he is a turned vampire.
Yeah.
He really only gets the heir mark because all the other family was killed and he happened to be turned by the king. And he also kind of left them for a little while and turned his back on them. So I totally understand why they're a little skeptical of him. Where have you been for the last 200 years? Just while we've all been being killed and attacked constantly, and now you want to come in and now we have to follow your orders. So I get that he's going to try and be a little bit more of a hard ass to assert authority and basically try and be like, no, see, I'm on your side. Like, she's the other group. I'm doing this to be nice. I totally get that. And I think she understands that too. Obviously, she's going to be dealing with grief because her dad was just killed and that's her only family. Also, just found out she's half vampire. She's got a lot going on. The only part that I did not love was that he literally drags her through the dirt.
Yeah.
He drags her like a slave. That I did not like. You could have maybe just grabbed her arm and paraded her out. But it looks aggressive, but you're not really holding. But it literally was a drag on the floor.
Yeah. I think it does him more harm with their relationship and how much she really starts to hate him in that moment. He could have easily just had held her by the arm and kind of moved her along, but I really think that him dragging her was a little bit too much. Not only just the fact of how it was done, but I think it just was a little bit how he was treated as a slave. And I don't think he needed to go to that limits, because he could have shown Araya that I'm not harming you. I'm trying to save you. And I don't think that she would have hated him as much as she does at the end, because she starts questioning their whole entire relationship. Was he literally just using me to get to kill Vincent? Was I his ticket in a way to get to the end because he knew I wanted to win? All of that stuff. So I think he could have done it a little bit different that would have saved him a bit in her eyes.
Completely agreed. There's a way he could have gone about it to reassure her, and yeah, he did not do it well. So I'm sure he'll have to grovel his way back. In book 2, they do get married, and she specifically does all the vows except for the one where it says, like, you have my heart. She does not get that. And they weren't going to marry them because of that. And then he was like, it's fine. She doesn't need to say it. Like, we're good. Keep it moving. So that's just something to point out. I'm assuming in book 2, they're going to get to a place where she's okay with him. They love each other. I'm wondering if they're going to have another wedding where she does give all the vows. And then really the other big part was that she finds out that she's now leader of the was it Hiaj? Is that what we're saying?
I think so.
Of their army, because Jasmine basically comes to her window and she's like, what do you want us to do? What are the orders? And she's like, I have no clue. I'm dealing with my dad's death. I just got married. I have no clue what's going on. I'm an heir. And then she basically tells them, retreat. I will give you orders once I have a handle on it. So I feel like that is really the only piece that is set up for book 2, where I'm getting the impression for book 2 it's going to be Rain trying to win over the Rishan people and like assert himself as a king, and then it's going to be her dealing with her army that she oversees, maybe trying to like sabotage his plans because she's pissed at him, and then somehow they're going to have to work together to kind of unite everyone. That's what I'm thinking for book 2.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too, because like we were saying earlier, I don't know what the lead up was going to be and what's the huge issue that they have to deal with in book 2. So yeah, I'm kind of on the same page, and just the fact that there's 2 air marks but they haven't killed each other. They're both still alive. So how do they work together or don't work together for it to still exist? Because with this bond, specifically getting married, Jasmine pretty much mentions that it nearly can cost your life breaking the bond. So this truly does bond them way more. So I feel like that's going to have to play a part in book 2 as well. So I don't know. Curious to see what happens, I guess.
I'm hoping it has a good ending, but yeah, I think we're gonna have to go down a little bit more before we like climb back up with them.
Yeah, exactly. They need to figure out their issues.
Just a little. Just a little.
The only other thing I had was it was Septimus who ended up planning the attack on the Moon Palace. So he was perfectly setting up for the two groups in Night to hate each other even more and to keep basically steering Vincent wrong and making him even more of an enemy in the Rashan area. And this might be a hot take, but I think if he didn't create that tension, I don't think Rain would have probably went to become heir, or I don't think he would have killed Vincent. I think he would have stayed heir, but I think he would have said to Vincent, we need to make this work instead of us always hating each other. Because I don't know, I feel like it would have been a little bit different if that didn't happen.
I think that's a good point. I think that definitely, I could see that being a possibility if that like explosion and then him destroying the towns didn't happen. I think he would have tried to find a way to work together because of Oriah.
Exactly. Because of her.
I hate Septimus. Yeah. I hate him so much.
I don't like him. He's slimy. He's suspicious. Super
That's the
odd.
perfect word for him, slimy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I'm not a fan.
Did you have any other theories or questions of what you think is going to happen in the next book, basically, for their story?
No, I didn't, honestly. That's the other thing with this book. I didn't feel like there was enough for me to theorize where I thought the storyline was going. Like I said, I think it's just going to be them hating each other and then finding a way for them to come together for like a common goal. I don't know what, like, I don't have any thoughts of what that could look like. There's things that like I want to get answers to, like her mom, her lifespan, is she going to become a vampire? But nothing of significance I don't have.
Yeah.
What about you?
The only other thing I had on top of those was just, do you think there'll ever be an end to the Kajari? Because Oriah and Rain are only doing it for a specific reason, not for this grand power. I mean, I know that Rain gets a lot of power from being the heir of the Rashan line, but I don't know. They weren't doing it for I want to be the almighty of this group and destroy everyone. You know, it wasn't for that. It was more Misha wanted Rain to take back his line because of the fact that it was taken by Neculi and, you know, all of his torture that he dealt with. Oriah was really just doing it because her father drilled it into her mind about being, you know, weak in this world. So I just don't know if they can go against the goddess right now or at any point, but I feel like this trial thing is just really weird to keep having, especially if I don't know if they're going to want a unified front going forward for House of Night or if they're still going to want to have that two sides fighting. So I was just questioning if the trial is even going to continue because I don't know. I was just confused.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it, but if anyone was going to end it, it would be them because they did say that House of Night is the one that coordinates it and puts everything together. It's not the other houses, so they would be in a position to, if they wanted to, probably make that decision to stop it. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I need to see what happens in book 2, where they go, what the goal is, and if it's something they want to stop. Because yeah, maybe if they did kind of get to a place where they unify the groups, maybe they want to end it because they don't want to run the risk of someone coming in trying to undo their work.
Yeah, and better yet, too, I mean, it kind of to your point about how the 6-book series is going to be 3 duologies, or that's what we're thinking, is I wonder if maybe at the end of all 6, is that when they might try to fight back against Nyaxia instead of letting her have so much power over them, because the goddesses and the gods pretty much still have a lot of power over these people. It's not like they have a little bit of a wish here and there and sprinkle some good or bad, but they have a lot of say in what happens day to day. But if all three houses went against her, could they, I don't know, defeat her again? I don't really know. I don't get it. But yeah.
I like that. That'd be a good ending. I like that a lot. So fingers crossed. That's how it goes.
I'm for it.
Well, we'll see. Book 4 comes out this summer. So we still have a ways to go before we get to the end.
Yeah, we have a bet. All right. So, like we mentioned at the beginning, we are already reading book 2, which is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So, we're actually going to just be covering that in our next episode as well. So, we're just going to continue with the duology for now and see kind of where that leads us. But for more things Booktrovert, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at BooktrovertsPod. Same with our Fable group. We're there as well, and just read along with us. And I guess see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.